everybody. Welcome to Making It Simple. Pastor Andy here. Great to be back with you today. Hope you are doing well. We're going to jump back into our lesson, In the Storm. We left off and Peter had just been rescued after saying, again, I've often said the most powerful three-word prayer in the Bible, Lord, save me. We see that as he uttered these words, Scripture says immediately Jesus reached out his hand. And as I said in the last lesson, friends, he's there. Call out to him. He is there. It said he immediately called a hold to him and said, you of little faith. Little is the key word there. Why? This wasn't a berating. This wasn't even a chastisement. It was a question. Basically, what he was saying in that statement, you of little faith, is, well, you had some, but you didn't have enough to give you strength. In other words, why did you doubt? You've seen so much. And he's speaking to Peter through this one statement. You of little faith. He's saying, you've seen so much. You've seen the healings and you've seen the mass feedings and you've spent time with me. We've walked together. We've talked together. We've ate together, cried together. All this, we've been together. Why did you doubt? Why did you doubt? Now, what I want to say to all of us in the midst of that statement is that statement, that question, why did you doubt? It should be felt by every single believer. And I don't say that as like a statement of guilt or condemnation, but rather, wow, why would I doubt? When I look all around me, there's an old song that Elvis did back in his gospel album back in the mid-70s. Seeing is believing. I mean, look around you. How can you deny anything? But what we find in that statement, why did you doubt, you of little faith, is, do you really believe? Do you really believe? In other words, do you trust me in the storm? Or only when the wind is calm? Because those two situations are vastly different. Because if we don't trust God in the storm, but only outside of that, there's a problem. Because our faith is not growing. Because our faith doesn't grow unless it's tested. We don't like that. But equate it to learning. Okay, if you start first grade and you make it all the way to 12th grade, and you've been given this enormous amounts of information along the way, but you're never tested on that. In other words, your ability to retain that information, did you ever really learn it? Sometimes the test helps us not only bring it back to mind, but it helps us realize where we need work. You know, it's like preparing for or signing up, I should say, for a 5K or 10K or some kind of K race. But prior to that, you know about running. You know what the physical ability to run is as far as quickly placing one foot in front of the other. But you never train. You never spend 1 minute of training. You don't worry about your diet. You don't go to the treadmill or the elliptical or go out in the evenings for brisk walks, and you don't do anything to build your endurance. Guess what? You will never finish that race. Never. Because it takes time to get there. Jesus is asking, as he's talking to Peter about his faith, you of little faith. What we have to understand is, as Peter called out, Lord, save me, Jesus will call. Jesus will answer that call. Jesus will answer that. But he calls for us to grow in that faith so that we firmly know that regardless of the level of storm, whether it's a brisk breeze or whether it's a cyclone, a hurricane, a tornado, a mudslide, doesn't matter, that regardless, he will see us through. That is when we realize that our faith is where it needs to be, but always has the ability to grow more, because some tests are stronger than others, as just some storms are stronger than others. A regular rain, that's one thing. A thunderstorm is a little bit different. A tornado is a different level. A hurricane, and so we see how but in the midst of all of those different storms, do we trust him in that storm? Or only after it's over? Only when it's easy? We read on in our story, Peter's been saved from drowning. When Jesus asked him, "You of little faith," when he said that statement to him, we have to understand that conversation is taking place on the water in the storm. Things have not calmed down. The wind is still howling. The waves are still roaring. We don't think about that. We think about, we get an illustrative picture in our mind, that they're back, they're sitting, in the boat. No, they're still on the water. They're still in the storm talking to one another. And Jesus says, why did you doubt me? He's pulled him up. He's holding him by the hand. So this is still taking place on the water in the storm. That changes a lot of things as we think about the concept of that story. He's right there with Peter. He's right there with you, whatever you're dealing with. And it tells us then they got back into the boat, and then the wind ceased. I want you to think about that for a minute. This conversation is taking place in the storm. Jesus is saying, why did you doubt me? We're in the storm. I saved you. You're okay. You didn't drown. Did you get wet? Did you get scared? Did you have doubts? Yes, because why? He was human. The same reasons that you and I would have the same problems. But what he's saying is, don't forget me in that. Don't forget that you have me. I didn't tell you the storm wouldn't come. I didn't tell you that at all. All throughout Scripture, we see different references. Jesus himself said, in this life you will have tribulation. That's difficult times. He said, in this world, if you follow me, the world will hate you. The Old Testament says, no weapon formed against you will prosper. But think about what's being said there. No weapon formed against you. Weapon formed. That doesn't say that it won't be. That doesn't say that it won't be used. That it won't come against you, will not prosper. It won't succeed. This storm has overtaken Peter, just as storms overtake our life oftentimes because of anxiety and all the pressures of life. But what he's saying is, in the midst of that storm, don't take your eyes off of me. I didn't tell you you wouldn't go through the storm. I didn't tell you that storms would not come. But you'll make it. Don't quit. You don't quit, God won't quit. That's my saying, and I'll hold on to that for the rest of my life. So we see that they got into the boat, and the wind has ceased. The others that were there were blown away by what they had witnessed. Not only the supernatural, inhuman ability of Peter walking on the water, but Peter and Jesus walking back together on the water. Jesus met them in their storm. Jesus saved Peter in that storm. They got back into the boat, and the winds and the waves ceased. It says they were amazed. They were blown away. Why? Because he truly is Lord of all and Lord over all. We need not forget that, friends. That is not a religious statement. That is a factual statement, that when we begin to place our faith in the one who is all. When God said to Moses, tell them I am, I want you to understand the furtherance of that statement, I am. What does that mean? Anything you need. Everything you need. I am your shelter. I am your safety net. I am your salvation. I am your guide and protect and wisdom. Everything You know, John chapter 1, when it says that the Word was with God and the Word was God, we get way too sidetracked with all the great purveyors, if you will, of intelligence today, trying to explain to you all this and that and all the theological boundaries and biblical knowledge that they supposedly have attained, and they miss the story. What is the point of the story? It's this: I will meet you where you are. Why? Because you're mine, and I love you, and I'll help you, but you got to trust me. That's what it all comes down to, friends. God bless you. We'll be back tomorrow with another lesson right here at Making It Simple.